The map of mindfulness. On the page, you see a design like an hourglass with two ovals, one at the top and one at the bottom. And at the center of the hourglass, you'll see something that we're calling the present moment. The top oval has a grid through it, and it's identified as time and space, or as the self, or as civilization. The two lines going from this top oval down to the center of the hourglass, to the present moment, are identified as well. On the left-hand side, going down, you will see the words listening and mindfulness. On the right-hand side, with an arrow going back up into time and space from the present moment, the words engagement and compassion or passion. On either side of the present moment, there are pairs of descriptors. On the left-hand side, we see the mirror of awakening or the mirror of forgetfulness. And on the right-hand side, describing the present moment, we see awake and conscious or reactive and unconscious. Moving down into the lower portion of the hourglass, we see the term cultivating selflessness. And then at its base, the great oval at the bottom of the map, are the terms great quiet, great virtue, great spirit. The map is from A Golden Civilization and the Map of Mindfulness. The first cultural change would be to understand the world as it is, not as a Cartesian grid of time and space from which we mine material and mental wealth, but as a great flourishing of the present moment, filled with virtue, relationship, and creative engagement. This understanding can be accomplished with the utmost simplicity by replacing our familiar maps of space-time with a map of mindfulness centered on the present moment, the only moment we've ever experienced, and the only place freedom resides, and then to practice the art of the present moment through a daily contemplative practice like mindfulness. I tell my students, if they are just beginners, to practice mindfulness 20 minutes a day at a minimum, and if they are already accomplished meditators, to double the amount they are currently meditating. You can't do too much. It will increase both your energy and your ease, and will spread well-being to all whom you encounter. It will increase freedom throughout the world. The map of mindfulness is a map of the world as it is. It includes time and space, but is centered on and arises out of the present moment, less acquisitive and analytic than it is relational and expansive. Mastery of the present moment is the greatest thing we can accomplish in our lives. When you focus on the present moment with mindfulness, you cultivate selflessness, graciousness, kindness, listening more than engaging, patience, clarity, equanimity, energy, wisdom, relationships, and great hearts. You cultivate emotional intelligence and virtue more than analytic and acquisitive skills, reducing greed and fear everywhere. Fiduciary responsibility. My one-sentence legislative proposal. A fiduciary standard of obligation is required for all institutions, corporate, nonprofit, and governmental, to place the interests of all stakeholders of humanity, democracy, and the living planet that sustains us first above their own self-interest. The second cultural change we must accomplish is to make certain that every institution, every hierarchy of power in civilization is dedicated to human flourishing and freedom. With a simple piece of legislation and a good deal of hard work, we can end war, corruption, autocracy, distrust, prejudice, gross inequality, famine, racism, propaganda and false news, and earth dangers fostered by humanity. 250 years ago, our great explosion of growth and innovation began, with dramatic increases in human knowledge, leisure, and longevity. Extraordinary. And yet, you would think that by now, after 250 years of development, at the top of every hierarchy of power, and filtering all the way down, we would find the very best of humanity, our wisdom and compassion. But instead, most of us would be hard-pressed to name even a single such hierarchy permeated by the best of humanity. It's time we did. By a simple legislative tweak to the organization and creation of every institution, whether corporate, governmental, or nonprofit, requiring them all to place first in their responsibility a fiduciary obligation to all we hold dear, so that their first impulse is always to act humanely, and so our first and everlasting experience of them is one of trust. Supporting humanity in this way must be a requirement for any institution to exist, the ticket to becoming a corporation, a government, or a nonprofit, and to maintaining that status.